morning and welcome to Hello Westchester here on WCHE every Monday from 11:30 to noon. I'm Eric Clambera, joined by Cara Corridoni, publisher of Hello Westchester, which releases every Friday, covers all the news and info you need to know. You can subscribe at hellowestchesterpa.com. How are you this morning, Cara?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Doing well. Glad to have you back on the air. Always a lot of things to talk about, and we'll get right into things here. First thing we have on today's agenda, Westchester Borough residents could be facing a tax increase next year. What's happening here?
Yeah, so fall is here officially today, but it's also, when you live in the borough, fall turns to be budgeting season. Well, it's budgeting season for everyone, but for Westchester Borough residents, it's always a kind of a crapshoot as to whether or not we'll be looking at a tax increase in the following year. And last week, Borough Manager Sean Metrick gave his annual presentation to Borough Council, kind of outlining what the budget situation is for 2026. And as of right now, it's not looking great. He said, right now we are staring at a big budget gap. So big, in fact, he was reluctant to provide numbers on what that looks like, instead kind of wanting to paint the picture. And essentially, there were kind of three factors this year that are playing kind of outside roles in this deficit that we are currently looking at. One of them is capital projects, and this is something that is an area that Borough Manager Sean would like to focus on. He'd really like it to be more that capital projects are better budgeted out over multiple years, so that the trend line is more consistent and you don't see big spikes. Well, we are not there yet. Next year's budget, capital budget is a year-over-year increase of $2.3 million. That's a big jump compared to last year, which was the total budget was $2.2 million. That indicates a doubling or more than doubling. So that is one area that they're going to be looking at. Currently in that kind of capital projects, there is a new public works building that the borough is looking to undertake. Well, construction I don't believe will be next year, but planning will start, and that's going to be big expenses. As the Gay Street closure, Phase 1 safety improvements, those two are scheduled for next year. That's a big budget item, much bigger than initially anticipated. There's also a number of park initiatives and some policing upgrades. Some upgrades police are looking for to their equipment. They're all kind of contributing to the increase right now. Whether those all stay in for next year, I think that's going to be one of the areas that will be looked at over the next month. Borough Councilman Brian McGinnis kind of advised department leaders to kind of look at their needs versus their wants. Obviously, this would be nice to have, but can we afford it all at this point in time? We're not sure. Another issue that's kind of impacting the capital projects in particular is that Westchester Borough has been doing a very good job at landing some grants to cover these costs. Last year's $2.2 million budget, nearly, where is that number? 3/4 of that was covered by grants. Unfortunately, for next year, there are still a number of grants outstanding. Those grant programs are getting tougher to come by. Obviously, the federal government has been doing a lot of spending cuts lately, meaning less pockets of money for municipalities to tap into. And the state budget has not yet been approved, so that also is kind of not leaving very many options. So capital projects is one area. Another area that's really kind of contributing to this shortfall is the rising cost of safety. So emergency service costs are going up across the board. It's resulting in a nearly $1 million increase to the borough budget next year. A big chunk of it is the police, but the police budget is just big overall. But by far the largest jump by percentage is for Good Fellowship and ambulance, which is going to see a $78% increase over the previous year. So part of this is they're facing a really large budget shortfall, nearly $2.3 million next year. This goes across all the municipalities that Good Fellowship supports, but they've been struggling with rising costs of medical equipment and vehicles, obviously salaries and benefits for their employees. They're also struggling with insurance premiums. It's been harder to find insurance companies that will take on ambulance companies, and as well as on the other end, they're having really stagnant insurance reimbursements from insurance companies in which they need to collect from. So in the past, Good Fellowship has relied on a 50-50 funding model. So 50% they would raise through fundraising goals, and then 50% municipalities would contribute. But they're asking to throw that model out because, as Good Fellowship Executive Director Chaz Brogren said last week, it's just not sustainable anymore with those rising costs. That fundraising lift has just gotten too heavy. So they're looking for insurance or for municipalities to step up. And again, it looks like Westchester Borough is going to be the hardest hit among all the municipalities they serve. This is largely due to call volume. Westchester Borough has had the largest call volume increase in 2026, they've had the largest call volume increase the previous year, which is what is impacting the 2026 budget. So that's going to be another hit for the borough budget. Additionally, the Westchester Police budget is going up. It's gone up 17% over the last 5 years. So that, and it's a large budget, so that is kind of looking at another $900,000 increase for them as well. So those are two of the big factors that are kind of contributing to this shortfall. And the other piece, it really explains why this always seems to be a uniquely borough situation, which, West Goshen, East Bradford, Westtown don't seem to have the same tension come budget season. They're allowed to kind of make presentations and just kind of deal with it. Well, part of that has to do with the tax base. Westchester Borough is constrained with a very limited tax base. So West Goshen, for example, they haven't raised real estate taxes for 15 years, and they still transferred, and I was just corrected on this, $5 million last year from their general fund to cover future capital projects. And this is partly because their total assessed property values are at $2 billion. By comparison, Westchester boroughs are at $775 million. Even East Bradford, which is half the size of the borough population-wise, had a assessed value of nearly $750,000 more, of $57 million. So what that means is that much more so than its neighbors, Westchester Borough is constantly having to figure out how to do more with less.
Yeah, and I think to your point as well, there's a lot of projects, a lot of ambitious plans that they have, and they all add up.
They do add up, yeah. And we do still, I think more so than some of the outlying townships, are still a destination. You know what I mean? With the downtown area, the borough, we were just talking a little bit about about Chester County Restaurant Festival yesterday. We do assume a lot of volume, and while that is great for revenue increases, parking as a big contributor to covering some of our borough expenses, it also has costs. That's a lot where the police to get involved, and they have to cover those kinds of things. And so, so there's good and bad with that, but that it does put a little strain on the budget every year. Yeah,
for sure, and you're seeing that reflected in the potential amount as far as the increase. So that is the Westchester Borough residents could be facing a tax increase next year. We'll have more details when we get them from the budget there.
Yeah, well, I guess so quickly, yeah. I guess on next steps, we should point those out. So this was just the first presentation. This was kind of the high-level introduction. They will be back next month with the actual numbers. So the October meeting should have the full budget that the council will debate, and then we'll see for actuality what we're looking at and if there's an increase and how much.
It'll be more clear at that point for sure. So that is the Westchester Borough residents. Sticking with Westchester, let's go to the university. They are looking to revamp their college game day experience.
Yes. So started this past weekend. I didn't go over there, but it was the first home football game of the season, and as such, the university kind of rolled out the spirit. There was a pep rally held out in front of the Science and Engineering building, and they had the concert in the quad on Friday. And they've also introduced this new, what they're calling kind of a new tailgating experience. And the idea is to welcome in the community more so than maybe they have in the past. As to quote Westchester University Director of Athletics, Terry Beatty, football is more fun with friends, and we're extending the invitation to everyone in the community. So one of the things they've done is they've kind of introduced some new pregame activities, some interactive games. There is a new Farrell Stadium's Kids Zone. This is located at the stadium, which is at 855 South New Street. The Kids Zone will feature mini football fields and interactive games. There will be face painting, photos with Rammy, water ice, Westchester University swag, and that is included with your ticket price. So if you're going to the game, you've got a ticket, which is pretty reasonable. It's $10 for adults to go and $5 for kids over 5. Kids will have an opportunity to kind of hang out in this area, play, keep them engaged. There's a separate section for the students, the Purple Pit. So that's where the university students will be over there. So yeah, they're trying to, I guess, be more inclusive. They want to get more of the community involved at these games. So yeah, so I think that was an interesting move by the university. I did not get over there, but I'm sure it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think you see that a lot of times. I mean, the Phillies and stuff like that, but especially like minor league games. I've noticed that too. It's once you get in, it's affordable, it's easy to get to, just like Westchester games are, but then you also have different forms of entertainment and ways to keep people engaged. So I think that's always a plus. Yeah,
I think that's good, especially as some of the professional events get to be so expensive to attend. It can be kind of difficult to get to. These are nice alternatives that you kind of get that same experience in a more attainable way.
Yeah, and even some colleges, I mean, like a Penn State, stuff like that, traveling up there, it's not cheap.
Right, so, or to get hold of those tickets.
Right, and
easy.
Then adding in the experiences. So Westchester University revamping their college game day experience, starting with the game this past weekend. And then the last one we have here before we go to a break, Westchester Borough introduced special event parking for some Westchester events.
Yes. So this is probably something you want to take a note of if you come into Westchester for the events. Last week, Borough Council voted unanimously to introduce a special event parking rate in the Town Center District. The new system would set a single all-day parking price for borough-owned garages. That includes Chestnut Street and Bicentennial Garage, as well as all the parking lots on the event day. So the fee will be $20. It goes into effect at 8 a.m. on event days. This is with the exception of events happening on Sundays. On Sunday events, the rate will not go into effect until noon. This allows for church service parking and not to get in the way of that. But this is definitely something, and then it'll go in effect 8 a.m. on non-Sundays, noon on Sundays, and then it's going to stay in effect throughout the event. So this is really something you'll want to keep in mind, especially if you're planning to come into the borough, say for a coffee run on Friday, December 6th, which is the day of the Christmas parade. Since that fee will be in effect at 8 a.m., you should come in at 10. You may only think you're going for 15 minutes, but it would cost you 20. So just keep that in mind. It'll also be in effect on the 13th for the Chris Kindle Market. Let me say, okay, who it doesn't apply to. It doesn't apply to vendors. So if you have a booth at these events, you will be given a parking pass. And it doesn't apply to monthly parkers. So if you're a regular parker, as long as you're parking during your regular parking hours, you'll be exempt from the fee.
And then also, it doesn't apply to the Gay Street open air market, which is helpful to know.
That is exactly. That's not considered a special event, so that's not going to be that. It's going to be more of your bigger events, like we said, the Christmas parade, Chris Krinkelmar coming up. And the other point was, like, for example, Restaurant Festival, it was sort of in effect. There was a $20 event fee for the garages, but it was not applied to the lots yet. I'm assuming that's going to be similar for the Halloween parade, which is coming up in a couple weeks on a Sunday. I talked to Westchester Parking Director Ramsey Reiner, and she really isn't expecting to have everything set for the full fee, for the full program to be in effect until the Christmas parade. So until then, it'll probably just be limited to garages. You'll still be able to park in lots. It also doesn't apply to street parking. So if you are able to find street parking, which can always be a challenge on these event days, that will follow regular parking rules.
And I think helpful as well, as mentioned in the new policy, signage will be posted in all lots at least 48 hours prior to the event. So if you're in the area, you'll be able to find out what's happening.
Yes, exactly.
So that takes us up to the middle of the show here. Let's take a break, and we will be back with much more on the other side. Stay with us, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to Hello Westchester. I'm Eric Clambera, joined by Cara Corridoni, publisher of Hello Westchester, which releases every Friday, covers all the news and information. You can subscribe at hellowestchesterpa.com. So we have some quick updates to get to. The first one here on our list, beware of the disengaged teen.
Yes, so the Westchester Area School District is assigning homework to everyone. So they have requested that, in particularly parents, but really community members are also invited to read a new book called The Disengaged Teen. It's by education researchers Jenny Anderson and Rebecca Winthrop. They surveyed more than 65,000 students, and they found that in third grade, when students were asked how they feel about school, 74% reported that they loved school. But by 10th grade, when you ask that same question, the number of students reporting that they love school has dropped to 26%. And the reason that they are kind of highlighting here is disengagement. And disengagement really isn't necessarily failing. It is the students that are basically just getting by. They kind of equated it to quiet quitting. We see at the workforce sometimes. A lot of times these students are either challenged and overwhelmed, or they are not challenged and kind of just bored, and they're just kind of getting across in this a wave of mediocrity. They're really not necessarily failing, so you can't really judge just by grades. It's just the kids that maybe are not actively learning. They're just getting by. And the problem here is what they've seen is that if kids that have checked out are less likely to develop skills of a learner, that's someone who's curious and adaptable and able to respond to different challenges and environments. So this is, the kind of the theme of the book, and the question that the Westchester Area School District is asking is, what can we do about it? And that's really, I think, where they're looking to have a community discussion over this, about what's going on here and how they can better help in families as well, communities better help to re-engage these kids so that they're more interested in school and, life.
And that's interesting, the number there, the 74% and the 26%. And I'm seeing even Westchester, the area school district, they planned an inaugural community discussion on that book.
That's right.
This week.
Yeah, it's coming up this week, so that's Thursday at 6 p.m. You'll have to look that up. I think it's at the Spelman Center, but don't quote me on that.
So you can get the book online or from the library. The Atlantic gives a pretty good overview of the situation as well, but I think that kind of makes sense as far as the numbers. I always enjoyed school. I mean, sure, there may have been days I didn't feel like going, but I do know a lot of people who used to be very enthusiastic as you get more and more into it, feel like they were kind of phoning it in or going through the motions.
Yes.
Maybe more looking forward to like sports and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Keeping them active, but
yeah.
So beware of the disengaged teen. The second one we have here on the quick updates, a new hotel coming to Carter Drive.
Yes, so this one has kind of been teased out there for a while, but it did get approval last week. So this is a new West Goshen hotel. It's at 205 Carter Drive. It's a 5-acre parcel. The approval came without an artist rendering of the 3-story building, so we don't get a chance to see what that's going to look like yet. What we do know is that it is owned by BT Carter Drive LLC, which is the same developer that is behind the Edge apartment complex, the student housing project that is right next door. So construction is expected to begin on that in spring of 2026. I'm sure there'll be some interest in this project going forward.
Oh, yeah, and the Edge, I stayed there when I was on campus, and I enjoyed my experience there, so if it's anything like that, I think they'll be in for a treat there. Now, as far as the 200-room hotel, okay, so it's a hotel, not housing.
It is a hotel,
okay,
yeah, so it's a hotel.
So, but same thing applies, I think. If it's anything close to that, I think people who stay there are definitely in for a treat with that one. The next one, the third quick update we had, West Goshen exploring a historic designation for certain properties built before 1900.
Yes, so this is still in the works. They're still working on the details, but the idea would be to list some properties as historic. If your property is zoned historic or deemed historic, this would place some limitations on what you could do with that property. It provides additional protection standards to make sure we preserve them. The benefits include recognition, preservation of historic character, and a potential access to grants or tax incentives if you wanted to upgrade. The drawbacks on that, however, would include restrictions to changes you can make to the property, including renovations, and whether or not you could demolish that at any time. They're still working on the details on how that's worded. Obviously, we have such a similar distinction here in Westchester, so those familiar with that own a historic property in the borough are very familiar what this would look like. So I'm sure you could hit up a borough friend if you have questions if you live in West Goshen.
Yeah, so it looks like there would be some benefits, of course, recognition, potential access to grants, but then drawbacks, some restrictions and renovations, possible demolitions. So some good and some bad.
Actually, before we move on to the next one, I just wanted to say those last two updates were brought to us by West Goshen Sunshine. She's been helping contribute and cover on West Goshen, so I just want to make sure I give her credit.
And that's a weekly in your newsletter,
She
right?
is now, a nice weekly report. So
some great, valuable information there, so appreciate that. Let's move on to Westchester University, who is hosting a neighborhood meeting on their 10-year master plan.
Yes, I think this might be of interest to some people that live in and around the university. We've been talking about this master plan for a little while now. It's an 800-page document, includes a lot of proposed updates to what the university want to do. So now the university is kind of going out into the community. They're looking to present it to neighbors themselves, so you can get a look at what they have envisioned, get your questions answered. They did send out meeting invites directly to those that live within 500 feet of the university. But the meetings are open to all, so even if you didn't get a letter and you're curious about what's going on or would want to get involved in the conversation, you can do that. There are currently two events planned. The first one is next Monday. It's from 8 to 9:30 p.m. at the Swoops Performance Center at 817 South High Street. And the second one, I think it's a week after that, is Monday, October 6th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at Asplunk Concert Hall.
Yep, Asplunk Concert Hall, yep.
Thank you.
At 700 South High Street, so the concert hall on the campus. So Westchester University inviting neighbors to the master plan meetings. As of now, there is the 29th from 8 to 9:30 at Swope Performance Center, 817 South High Street, and then Monday the 6th, 6 to 7:30. Did they say if they're going to have additional, or no word on that yet?
Any additional meetings? No, there is no mention of additional. I think if you want to go, I'd make a point to attend one of those two just to make sure you get in, yeah.
Yep, so the next 2 Mondays, make sure to make a note of that, listeners. And the next quick update, we have a few minutes left, we'll go with Henderson students start a nonprofit to support student mental health.
Yeah, so this is a little profile last week. Michelle, her name is, where did she go?
Oop, I lost it here.
Oh, Lily Holman. Lily Holman, she's a junior at Henderson High School, and she recently started a nonprofit to raise money for teen mental health and suicide prevention. The profit is called Lily and Lotus Flower Boutique. So she had this, she wanted to raise and support money for teen mental health. And she also likes flower arranging, and she said she was having a hard time getting a job doing that since, she had no experience. So she's working with a local flower farm called Straw Flower Farms. She goes and purchases the flowers, and she arranges them, and she's selling them. And she's donating 100% of the profits to the Jed Foundation, which focuses on teen suicide and protecting emotional wellness of young adults. So she's been doing this. She was out on a Gay Street last week. She was partnered with Penn's Table as part of their family night. But the bouquets are available anytime from where is she at?
I did see. So
Renew Laser and Aesthetic Medicine.
Okay.
That's at 704 Neal Street. There's also a Kennett Square location of that, but you can get them. The bouquets are $20 for small ones and $30 for large ones. All that goes to a good cause, and I thought it was really good for her for taking that on as a junior. I certainly was not starting my own nonprofit.
16 years old, starting early on that for sure. So shout out to Lily and Lotus. And then the next one we'll go to, we have one more quick update. Clear the closet of those old books.
Yes, so the Westchester Public Library is closing the streets for its first ever, at least the first I know of, book sale on October 4th. In order to get ready for that sale, they are asking community members to help them out by donating their old books in good use condition, as well as any audio-visual items you may have that you want to get rid of. You can drop them off at the circulation desk anytime between now and October 3rd.
So now through October 3rd, and then on the 4th, as Cara mentioned, library closing the streets for its first ever book sale. In order to get ready for that sale, they will be getting some of the books there. So look out for that coming on October 4th. And then real quick, I know we're up on time here. I'm just going to point out a couple of the events taking place this weekend. I see the 26th, they have the Westchester University Symphony Orchestra concert.
Yep.
That is 7:30 to 9 p.m. at the Adler Theater. Also, the 27th, we have the Chester County Art Walk at East Goshen Township Park, the Revolutionary Pub Crawl, East Market Street, 12:30 to 3:30, and Oktoberfest all day in downtown Westchester. So a busy weekend.
Always, yes. It's fall in the Westchester. Get out there, get out there and enjoy the weather and the events.
And a couple of weeks until we have the Chill Cook-Off.
Yes.
So a very busy time here. So, Cara, I appreciate your time. As always, listeners, you can check out the podcast of this episode and all episodes at 953wche.com. Thank you for listening. We'll talk next time.